This is it. This is the Table of Nations. There was a time when the entire earth was black. There was a time when all nations were black. Something happened in history. Something happened that changed history. A hybrid race appeared on Earth. This hybrid race, it is a mixture of the fallen angels and the black woman. Giants roamed the earth. The existence of giants is the reason for the flood. And the flood, it came and killed all of the giants. All of this started with Cain's lineage. According to the book of Giants, the fallen angels, they took wives from Cain's lineage, and they produce offspring. The interbreeding between the fallen angels and the black woman, it happened with Cain's lineage because God made Cain's lineage a vagabond. And whenever Cain and his lineage till the ground will not produce any food for Cain, and it will not produce any food for his lineage. Genesis chapter 4, verse 12, it reads, "When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Thus, food shortage and famine is the cause for Cain and his lineage to start migrating to different parts of Africa, and they eventually migrated outside of Africa. And this migration, it was for the reason of looking for food and for good ground to produce food. This migration, this was the first out of Africa. This is the punishment from God put on Cain and his descendants. When Cain and his descendants worked the ground will not produce any food for them. This punishment, it caused Cain's descendants to wander out of Africa looking for food. The lack of food is the reason they went out of Africa. But in the event of going out of Africa, they encountered the fallen angels, and the fallen angels interbred with the descendants of Cain. The Nephilim, they were destroyed by the flood. After the flood was over, God set his bow as a covenant between him and the earth. But the fallen angels, they continue interbreeding again, producing more giants on the earth. This time God did something different. Instead of sending another flood, God made the giants smaller in stature, and this brings us to modern times. In the book of Enoch, the Nephilim, they were described as being red and white. The Caucasian is red and white, and this is pheomelanin, which is a genetic mutation, and this is biological evidence that the Caucasian is the Nephilim, but he is smaller in stature. The Nephilim were made small in stature, and they existed in all land outside of Africa as cavemen and wild men. They were full of hair that covered the entire body. This need for a lot of hair that covers the entire body, it was because of the climate. The Nephilim, which is now the caveman or wild man, this being, it lived in a cold climate in caves, and the hairy body provided warmth, keeping their bodies warm. The black man and the black woman, they were created by God, where their bodies produce heat internally. and they do not need a lot of hair that covers the entire body. Only animals have hair or fur that covers the entire body. The Caucasian is the wild man and the caveman, and he has field melanin, which is animal melanin, and he has 99% the same genome as the chimpanzee and rhesus monkey, hence the hairy body that has been classified as hypertrichosis. The wild man, which is the same as the caveman, which is the Caucasian. The wild man, he lived in all land areas outside of Africa. This is very important to note. The wild man lived in all land areas outside of Africa. It is very important for the black man and black woman to know and understand that all land outside of Africa is the territory of cavemen and wild men. Within these land areas outside of Africa, there are many caves where the offspring of the fallen angels live, and these are the ancestors of the Caucasian. The Caucasian was a cave dweller. He was a troglodyte, and he lived in land that was undeveloped. It is very important for the black man and black woman to know and understand how the world really looked prior to 711 AD. Africa, it was the only country that was developed and civilized. Africa is the location where all biblical events took place. Africa is where all black history occurred prior to 711 AD. In 711 AD, the black Moors, they went out of Africa into the lands where the wild man and caveman lived. The black Moors, they developed and civilized all of Europe and all of Asia. They built all of Europe and all of Asia, and the Moors, they ruled all of Europe and all of Asia. Before 711 AD, all land outside of Africa was undeveloped and uncivilized and full of caves, and this is where the Neanderthal and Denisovan lived. Before 711 AD, Africa was the only civilized and developed country. Now that we have the correct understanding and view of the world prior to 711 AD, now we can begin to look at the Table of Nations. Where Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they divided up the land of Africa, and we can begin to look at how their descendants repopulated Africa. In Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus, he said, however, the Armenians call this place the place of descent, for the ark being saved in that place, its remains are shown there by the inhabitants to this day. An impression of the ark is still visible today in Windhoek. The ark landed on Mount Lubard in the geographical area of the Kingdom of Ararat. The ark, it did not land on Ararat. Ararat is the kingdom, and Mount Lubard is one of the mountains in a conglomerate of mountain ranges located in the area of the Kingdom of Ararat. The Kingdom of Ararat and Mount Lubard are in the same location as present-day Windhoek in Namibia. Mount Lubard, commonly known as Mount Ararat, is covered up with the place name Os Mountain. This is the location of the ark. This is where the ark landed. This impression, this imprint, is the shape of the ark. This is it here. This is how the ark looked. The ark is a long rectangular shape that has 9 compartments. And these buildings, all these buildings here, this is a military base. It is a restricted area. No visitors are allowed in this area. And over here, this is another military base, a restricted area, guarding the ark. This is the location of Noah's Ark. And this is how it looked, a long rectangular shape that has 9 compartments. It's the shape of the ark, 9 compartments, a long rectangular shape. And this is how it looked, the ark that Noah built. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They receive inheritance of land. But what is the true location of each inheritance of land? Many scholars have placed the inheritance of Shem, Ham, and Japheth in locations that are inconsistent with what is written in the book of Jubilees. Some scholars have placed Shem's inheritance in Southwest Asia and in the Middle East. Some scholars have placed Ham's inheritance in the upper part of Africa, above the Sahara Desert, while other scholars put Ham in all of Africa. Other scholars have placed Japheth's inheritance in the location of Russia and Europe. Some scholars have even given Europe and Asia as the inheritance of Japheth. Other scholars claim that North America is the land of Japheth. There are many other claims of Shem, Ham, and Japheth's inheritance as being located outside of Africa in the lands of the fallen angels. But these claims are all false, and they are inconsistent with what is written in the book of Jubilees. The author of Jubilees, he defines the borders of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He defines their inheritance by usage of rivers and mountains. In Shem's portion, the author says in verses 15 and 16, concerning Shem's portion, Jubilee says the land extends to the Gihon River, and it extends to the Garden of Eden. The Gihon River and the Garden of Eden, they are located in Africa. Genesis chapter 2, verse 13, it says, "And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia." Ethiopia is located in Africa. This means Shem's inheritance is located in Africa. In verse 23, concerning Ham's portion, Jubilee says, "And it goes forth towards the north to the limits of Gader, and it goes forth to the coast of the waters of the sea, to the waters of the great sea, till it draws near the river Gihon, and it goes along the river Gihon, till it reaches the right of the Garden of Eden." The Gihon River is located in Africa, in Ethiopia, and this puts Ham's inheritance in Africa. In verse 25, concerning Japheth's portion, Jubilee says, "And for Japheth came forth the third portion beyond the river Tina to the north." The river Tina is located in Africa, and this puts Japheth's portion in Africa. The inheritance of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they are located within Africa and Africa only. They are not located outside of Africa in the lands of fallen angels. Dividing the land of Africa. Jubilees chapter 8 verse 10. It reads, "And it came to pass in the beginning of the 33rd Jubilee that they divided the earth into 3 parts, for Shem and Ham and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each, in the first year, in the first week, when one of us who had been sent was with them." In verse 12, it reads, "And there came forth on the writing as Shem's lot the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons for the generations of eternity." The author of Jubilees continues, "From the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina, and his portion, it goes towards the west, through the middle of this river, and it extends till it reaches the water of the abyss, out of which this river goes forth, and pours its water into the sea Miat, and this river flows into the great sea." Jubilees, it gives us some of the geographical location of Shem's inheritance. Jubilees mention Rapha, Tina, the extension of the land towards the west, the great sea, which is the water of the abyss. These 4 geographical locations are found in Africa, and in Africa only, in Namibia, and in South Africa. They are not located outside of Africa. They are not located in the Middle East. They are not located in Southwest Asia. They are located in Africa. According to Jubilees, Shem's inheritance, it starts with Mount Rapha. In verse 12 in Jubilees chapter 8, it says, from the middle of the mountain range of Rapha. Mount Rapha, this is Raphaim. The Hebrew word Raphaim is the plural of the word Rapha. And Raphaim, this is Abarim. Mount Raphaim is Mount Abarim. And Mount Abarim, it is located in the tribe of Judah next to the Dead Sea. Mount Abarim, it is located in Namibia. Jubilees, it goes on to say, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina. The river Tina, this is the Jordan River. And the Jordan River, it is covered up with various place names, such as the Orange River. In verse 13, it says, and it extends till it reaches Curacao. This is in the bosom of the tongue which looks towards the south. The author of Jubilees, he is talking about a river that extends to Curacao. And Curacao is located in a river that shapes like a tongue pointing towards the south. The only river that shapes like a tongue and points towards the south is the Sea of Galilee. In verse 14 of Jubilees chapter 8, it reads, and his portion extends along the great sea, and it extends in a straight line till it reaches the west of the tongue which looks towards the south. Verse 14 is giving a description of the land of Judah. It is describing the portion of Judah that has been called in Hebrew the Shephelah. The Shephelah, this is a mountain ridge that has been described as foothills or low land. This mountain ridge, it extends from the tribe of Judah. It extends in a straight line going north all the way up to where the Sea of Galilee is located. It starts in Judah, next to the Mount Abarim. And this is the Shephelah. It starts in Judah and it extends north in a straight line, exactly the way it is written in Jubilees. Jubilee says that it extends in a straight line along the Great Sea. This is the Great Sea, and this is this mountain range or ridge that extends in a straight line, and it goes all the way to the Sea of Galilee. It connects to the Sea of Galilee on the west side of this sea that looks and shaped like a tongue. This is the Sea of Galilee, shaped like a tongue that looks towards the south. And this is the mountain Shephelah. This whole thing has been called in Hebrew Shephelah. This is Mount Abarim. This is the Shephelah. It stands in a north and south direction. It goes north all the way to the Sea of Galilee, and it connects to the Sea of Galilee on the west end of the sea. And as Jubilee gives a description of the Sea of Galilee, describing it as a tongue that points towards the south. This is the only sea that has that type of shape, a tongue that points towards the south. That's the Sea of Galilee. There was a time when when Egypt ruled this area, they ruled Namibia. And this is what the author of Jubilee is referring to when he wrote that this sea was called the Egyptian Sea. Because there was a time when Egypt ruled Namibia, ruled Damascus, ruled Syria, ruled Aram. And this time was when the upper Egypt, the borders were extended all the way to the kingdom of Aram, all the way to the Euphrates River. And that was done by Thutmose I. And ever since then, Egypt was in rule of Namibia. This is the Shephelah. This is the mountain ridge or lowland foothills that is being referred to in Jubilees chapter 8 verse 14. This is the land, the portion of Shem's inheritance. It extends from the tribe of Judah all the way to the Sea of Galilee. In this sea, it is described in Jubilees as a tongue that looks towards the south. Verse 15 says, "And it turns from here towards the south, towards the mouth of the great sea, on its shores of its waters, and it extends to the west of Ephraim, and it extends till it reaches the waters of the river Gihon, and to the south of the waters of Gihon, to the banks of this river." And in verse 18, "Nor he rejoiced, because he knew Shem had a very good portion of land." In verse 19 it reads, "And he knew that the Garden of Eden is the Holy of Holies, and the dwelling of the Lord, and Mount Sinai, the center of the desert, and Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. These three were created as holy places, facing each other." The Garden of Eden, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, these three are evidence that the true location of Shem, Ham, and Japheth's inheritance, they are located in Africa. The Garden of Eden, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, all three are located in Africa. Ham's inheritance. In verse 22 of Jubilees, it reads, "And for Ham came forth the second portion, beyond the Gihon, towards the south to the right of the garden, and it extends towards the south, and it extends to all the mountains of fire, and it extends towards the west to the Sea of Atel, and it extends towards the west till it reaches the Sea of Ma'uk, that sea into which everything which is not destroyed descends." Jubilee says Ham's portion is beyond the Gihon towards the south to the right of the garden. Jubilees goes on to say Ham's portion extends towards the south to all mountains of fire. Jubilees emphasizes the south and the right of the garden. Jubilees places emphasis on these two sites as the location of Ham's portion of land. This location is the southeast side of Africa, and within this location are several mountains of fire. Mountains of fire are volcanoes. In the southeast side of Africa, there are several volcanic mountains, and they are located in the Lesotho area, and today they are called the Drakensberg Mountains. Mountains of fire are volcanoes, and this is in Ham's territory. The Drakensberg Mountains, they form the northeastern and eastern borders of Lesotho. The Drakensberg Mountains are composed of thick layer of basalt, and basalt, this is lava, which means the Drakensberg Mountains are volcanic, and they erupted a long time ago. The volcanic nature of the Drakensbergs causing fires is what Jubilees is referring to when it says mountains of fire, and this is in Ham's territory. Jubilee says the land of Ham extends to the west to the Sea of Atel, then it extends west to the Sea Mauk. The Sea of Atel is located above Windhoek in Namibia in the city Okahanja. West of the Sea of Atel is the sea that is called Mauk. This sea is located approximately 28 miles west of Atel. The Swakop River, which is the Gihon River, it flows in this direction. This is the geographical location of Ham's portion of land that extends along the Gihon River, and it goes towards the right of the Garden of Eden. Then it extends south to the mountains of fire. Japheth's inheritance, verse 25 in Jubilees, it reads, "And for Japheth came forth the third portion beyond the river Tina to the north of the outflow of its waters, and it extends northeasterly to the whole region of Gog, and to all the country east thereof." According to Josephus, Gog and Magog are Scythia. Scythia was located in the eastern upper part of Lower Galilee. The upper part of Lower Galilee has been called Europe. In verse 26, Jubilees goes on to say that Japheth's land, it extends to the mountains of Kelt, then it extends to the sea of Mauk, then it goes east to Gadir. The mountains of Kelt, this is the Taurus mountain, the Taurus mountain range, and part of this mountain range is the portion of Japheth's inheritance. Verse 27 says, Japheth's portion of land extends to Farah, spelled F-A-R-A. Farah is Parsa. Parsa is Persia. Jubilees, it mentions Epharad and Miat as locations of Japheth's land. However, Epharad and Miat, they have not been identified due to the scarcity of information, but their general location is around the Taurus mountain range, which is located in Asia and Europe. Asia and Europe, these are sections of the upper part of Lower Galilee. Verse 28, this verse shows the land of Japheth extending from the Tina River and going to the vicinity of Mount Abarim, and from there it goes north. This is the land which came forth for Japheth and his sons as the portion of his inheritance, which he should possess for himself and his sons, for their generations forever. 5 great islands, and a great land in the north. The inheritance of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they are located in Africa. They are not located outside of Africa. All land outside of Africa is the territory of cavemen.